Ladies and gentlemen, it's Ukrainian show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and today's guests we have our man in Kiev, Ivan Kucherenko. Welcome to the show, Ivan.
Hello, Sasha. Hello to everyone. Glad to be here today.
And we have a political commentator from Pod TV, Steve Rao. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Oh, welcome. It's great to be here.
Okay, very good. So now we can see that Putin is escalating the war very significantly. In the last night, there were 21 the missiles attacks in 20 minutes. It's never happened before. Ivan, how would you explain and comment on this situation?
The explanation is quite simple. There is an article in Economist when sources of the journalist said that Putin is really afraid of his life, and if he will not take the whole Donbass, he's persuaded that his followers will just hang him, and he will be killed by those unsatisfied Russian fanatics. So he decided to go to escalation while the Russia is going down from the economic side, from the human resources side. In August, Russia lost even more soldiers, more than 45,000 soldiers. But in order to show his supporters that, and beside that, they were able to capture a very few territories, Ukrainian territories, and in order to show Putin's supporters that Russia is being victorious in this war, they've decided to increase the terror of Ukraine, especially of Kiev. In Kiev now there are air alerts every 15 minutes. The 24 hours a day, Russia is sending waves of Shahid drones. Last night was a huge cruise missile and ballistic missile attack with casualties. So we can just watch in the video which I brought to you today how it's going here in Kiev and in Ukraine during last days.
Thank you, Ivan. Let's watch it.
Mark, please start the video. Hopefully we will start the video.
Okay, let's wait one more minute, and then we'll just have to continue on.
Okay, maybe next time.
Well, what's interesting is that the character of war from the Russian point of view is keep changing. So at the beginning it was a change of regime, is taking some terminology, denazification, and some other terminology which I really don't remember. Anyway, there were grandiose plans. And now they came down to just take over all Donbass. Even that is quite doubtful exercise because who is going to give him Kramatorsk and Slaviansk? It's like how you want to say, I want Kramatorsk, I want Slaviansk. take it. Oh, you can't. So just go away. So this is more or less territorial war, I would say. His bombardment of Kiev and other cities is typically genocidal actions. There is nothing else, nowhere to explain it, because if you could, with one or two missiles, you could say that it was by mistake, it was aiming somewhere else. But when you sent 20 missiles or 21 missiles in 20 minutes, and they're all going to attack the civilians. Now, this is not an accident. You cannot claim that you wanted um, to go to hit some other targets. We know what you wanted to hit. You wanted to hit Ukrainian civilians, and that's exactly what you're doing. But it's not going to go forever, because the Ukraine is getting slowly but surely all the newest weapons and equipment, and it will deal with. Interestingly enough, from point of view of Iranian American war, it's not really a territorial war. There is only one territory that matters. It's a Hormuz Strait. Other than that, there is no territory of any kind of importance. And by the way, same as Russia, United States also several times changed its targets, its aims to achieve in this war, and so on. So now the main target for the United States is to reopen Strait of Hormuz. But Strait of Hormuz was opened the day before the war, on 28th of February. It was open. So what United States achieved in 6 months in this war, losing a good percentage of its ammunition. And by the way, Ukraine is also suffering because of that U.S. cannot provide enough interceptors and so on. Steve, what do you think about this war and how it affects Ukraine?
Oh, well, that's a great and very timely question. I think my take on it, Sasha, is that, there's been 4 years of war. Ukraine has fought valiantly, but I do believe that, they keep talking about a peace, and it's going to be very hard for Ukraine to negotiate a peace if they're continuing if their cities are being pulverized like this every 20 minutes. So, I think it's so critically important that they get better defense systems, deterrent systems, Patriot missiles. And this is where they need the United States and Europe to step up their efforts. It's just not enough to just say we're going to allow them to continue with their drone program, which has been amazing, 7 to 8 million drones, but it's just not enough. So that's lesson number one. I would say we've got to strengthen their air defense, and the United States, NATO, and the allies need to establish a more coordinated program to do that, which is going to require investment. The other thing I would say is that Europe's a much larger part of the security solution here. Ukraine is in Europe's backyard. So, they've got to continue to do what's important to end this war. And then if we do get to a peace, which I still think is doubtful, what I found interesting is that Modi is now pushing for Ukrainian peace, which, he's now changing his tune, saying, well, trade's been down a little bit between Russia and India. Maybe it's trying to fight the tariffs that Trump is putting on India, 25% tariffs. But I think, we have to look at, protecting energy, nuclear facilities, protecting agriculture exports, looking at where the fighting is going to stop, what are the security guarantees. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, but I'm looking at it from Ukraine's perspective that we've got the West and the United States has to help Ukraine more, particularly with deterrence.
Yeah.
Along with diplomacy.
I agree. Ivan, how you would comment on that?
Actually, the outtakes of this war, they are really unclear, and for Ukraine especially, because there are two factors which influence Russian war in Ukraine. that the increase prices on oil as a consequence of that war in Iran, which has assisted Russia in filling their budget. And another issue is what you mentioned, Sasha, the shortage of interceptors. For instance, during the last night, Ukrainian the last Russian attack on Ukraine, on Kiev, Russia used 20 ballistic missiles. Only 5 ballistic missiles were intercepted. Ukraine was successful in intercepting all Russian cruise missiles, a high number of Russian drones, but only 5 from 20 ballistic missiles were intercepted. To intercept one ballistic missile, Ukraine has to spend at least 2 or better 3 Patriot interceptor missiles. So it's clear mathematics. And of course, if United States and United States allies are in active war in some other region with Iran, where Iran also uses ballistic missiles against American allies and American bases in the region, then there is a shortage of that. But in Ukraine, despite the I haven't seen the consequences of Iran attacks on American bases, but in Ukraine, Russian attacks, they lead to very devastating consequences. Unfortunately, a lot of people dies, civilian people dies, industry and infrastructural objects are being destroyed, and this is the direct consequence of Russian attacks, which are successful because Ukraine doesn't have enough interceptor missiles for Patriot system. So now I think we are ready to watch the video and where you can see what happened during the last week in Ukraine of those barbaric Russian attacks.
Thank you. Ivan, do you think it's realistic that Ukrainian people with all this terror provided by Russia, that they will ask Ukrainian government to do one of two things: to stop the terror, stop the war, or whatever conditions, give them some parts of Donbass as they wish, and so on, just to stop the wars. Number one. Number two, inflict unacceptable damage to Russian cities. Stop doing all these the refineries, the logistics centers, because okay, that helps to weaken Russia, but it may take years until Russia will stop the war, because they say, okay, we lost so many refineries, or we lost another shopping center, or the logistics center, and so on. It's kind of it's a long process that as long as you keep doing that, it will bring results, but it will take time. Whereas Russian actions, they are here and now. Here is a missile, here is a 20, 30, 50 people death. And Ukrainians may ask, just you know what? There will be no love between Ukrainian and Russian people for generations to come because of this war. So if Ukraine will start answering exactly as a mirror actions for what Russians doing on Ukraine, on Russian cities, including Moscow and St. Petersburg and Ekaterinburg and whatever, the large centers, would Ukraine do or may make its situation much worse than it is already? Because again, I'm afraid that this air defenses, it will take months until they will arrive and could be used, and so on and on. It's not tomorrow. It's not next week. It's not even next month. I will promise is that.
As for the first question, your question, Sasha, if the Russian terror may actually lead to that Ukrainians will ask our government to accept all Russian conditions and stop the war, give the Donbass and blah blah blah. I'm not sure that it will work, because Ukrainians already seen that Russians are not stopping. And it started in 2014 with the annexation of Crimea, with the Russian hybrid war on Donbass, and it continued in 2022 with the start of Russian full-scale invasion. They will not stop with it. Majority of Ukrainians understand that Russia accepts only power. And if you will be weak, and if you will just accept their unacceptable requirements, they will, after that, they will continue and require even more. They've already put the whole Kherson and Zaporizhia region into their constitution. They've annexed those regions officially. They're not controlling their territories, all territories of that regions, but they've officially annexed them and wrote in their constitution that those regions are part of Russian Federation. And after, if Ukraine will give them Donbass, then they will say, okay, now give us Kherson region, give us Zaporizhia region, because they're Russian territories. Here it's written in our Russian constitution. So it's not a point, actually. As for your second question, while where Ukrainians has to use the same tactics and attack Russian cities, bomb their houses, destroy their civilian infrastructure objects. First of all, it's terrorist tactics. Ukraine is not a terrorist state, despite of Russia. Russia is using these tactics of terror because they're de facto the terrorist state. Unfortunately, they are not claimed de jure as terrorist state because major Western powers like United States, they're too weak to claim Russia officially as being a terrorist state. But de facto, you've seen from this video, Russia is a terrorist state, and the Ukraine will not use such tactics. And the second point is that it will lead to the for regular Russians to face the consequences of such attacks. But in Russia, regular Russians they doesn't their voice has no power actually. In Russia, there is one powerful voice, a voice of the Tsar, of Putin, and the crowd, the people will just do what their Tsar wants. There is a second strong voice, a voice of oligarchs, of Russian elites, which can change Tsar if they are not satisfied with him. And this happened in Russian history when Russian Tsars were just died in some strange occurrences, or they were killed, or they were just like the former Soviet heads of Soviet Union. They were just changed after some specific processes in the Communist Party, in the head of Communist Party. So it may happen. And current Ukrainian tactics of attacking Russian energy objects, oil refineries, Russian ports, Russian logistic objects, it actually can lead to the point where Russian elites would be more and more unsatisfied by Putin's policy, and then probably they will think about, okay, it's a point where we have to change our Tsar, because our current Tsar, Putin, is leading our mighty Russia towards imminent collapse, for instance.
Ivan, you see the elite, they can survive long time without gasoline or diesel or whatever else. I think Ukrainians have to include also bombardment of electric stations around Moscow. So the Russians, when now is coming soon or so on, and there will be no hot water, no electricity, they will feel, wow, there is a war, it's real. And so that's not supposedly terrorist attack. And even if it is, I mean, it's a small fraction of what Russians are doing in Ukraine. So it could be just dismissed. I would concentrate on that. I know I'm not in a position to provide advices to Ukrainian management of the war, like Zelensky and others. But I think there is really something to think. And I've heard somewhere actually this idea that if Ukrainians will step their attack against vital infrastructure, which is responsible for electricity, water, hot water, this type of things, then there could be a very different view, because okay, now so people have they don't have enough food, most of the people suffering because of the gasoline shortage, but most Russians don't have cars anyway, so it doesn't affect them. And okay, it helps. I'm not criticizing what
I think, yeah. I mean, I think Russia's economy is weakening, and so I think there's still an opportunity to to target our ability to for their ability to finance and sustain the war. But I think the other thing we often forget about, and I mentioned earlier, is that there's a lot of other countries that have a diplomatic relationship with Moscow that the United States doesn't. India is one. Its economy is growing. It's doing better. If Modi is putting pressure on Moscow, and at the same time Turkey and Saudi Arabia do, I think it's going to provide more of an incentive for Russia possibly to realize that the only path forward is the path to peace. Now, of course, there has to be security guarantees, but I think everybody in the world is starting to realize that a secure Europe and a durable peace is better for the world in terms of lower price. And meanwhile, we've got the war in Iran going on. So, but I think that's where this is headed. And the good news is I think more and more people are unifying behind ending this thing. The question becomes, will it be one that's fair and equitable? And if Putin has the mind and reason, or he's just crazy and he's going to keep going until he just self-destructs.
Putin just mentioned loud and clear a couple of days ago that if they will not take a Donbass, as Putin himself will be murdered or killed or something bad happened.
Yeah.
So if Modi really wants to make a peace, he might think about providing the passenger flight from Russia to India, so Putin could take to board this flight and be hidden somewhere in Modi's castle somewhere in India.
Right.
We'll go for it. Remember, at the beginning of the war, when Biden offered Zelensky a flight to UK to save himself, and remember that what Zelensky he replied that he needs the artillery and other
weapons, not a taxi.
weapons, not the taxi out of Kiev. Well, that's what's happened right now. I really wish we will discuss better news in our next program. Hopefully on Friday we'll get together again, same place, same time. And in the meantime, thank you so much for today's program. Slava Ukraini, glory to Ukraine.
Slava Ukraine.
Героям слава. Thank you.
Very much. And goodbye to all our listeners. Goodbye to you. See you on Friday. Bye-bye, everyone.
Goodbye.